I must have been 12 or 13 years old when my dad bought a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and he was home alone, and my brothers and my mom and I, we got home, and there was this tape recorder sitting on the living room table, the kitchen table, basically. And there was a note on it that said, explain what to do, press play. And we had to figure out what was going on because I don't think I'd ever seen a reel-to-reel tape recorder. Anyway, so we pressed play and his voice popped out and he, I don't know, had some goofy spiel that he gave us. That was kind of my introduction to audio recording. Hey, it's Tim Patterson and this is Trade Show Guy Monday Morning Coffee for mid-February 2021. You can find us at TradeshowGuy.net. We do trade show exhibits at TradeshowGuyExhibits.com. And even virtual exhibits, lots of stuff. You can find a couple of books that you can download a chapter or a free copy of one of them. It's all at TradeshowGuy.net. So back to the recorder. One of the things I wanted to do was to record myself, and I think we all did. But the weird thing, and everyone does this, you record yourself and you listen to it back, and the first thing you go is, that's what I sound like? Wait a minute, that's not me. That can't be me. What? Everybody does that. I've seen it happen so many times, especially coming from radio. But anyway, hearing your voice is interesting. And this kind of leads into the next, it's a big jump, but it leads into this week's theme. I have no guests, so I thought, how about some of the best advice I've been given, maybe some not so good advice over the years, and just kind of go through some of this advice. It took me a while to kind of track down some of the things and make notes and stuff. So this is kind of fun. Anyway, from a very young professional age in radio, talking about recording yourself, some old pro told me that if I wanted to get better on the radio, I needed to know how I sounded, which meant that I should tape myself, which in the radio biz is called an air check. Back in when I got in 1975 as a teenager. Yes, I was working full-time in radio as a teenager. We had a reel-to-reel, and we put a reel-to-reel on, and we recorded. And it would stop every time you hit the mic on the board. There's a button you push for the mic that would trigger the tape recorder to play, and then you'd stop, and the tape recorder would stop. You'd turn the mic off, and so all you had at the end of your shift was, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes of you talking over like a 4-hour shift. It's called an air check, and all it records is you talking. So you listen to it back, and you go, "Wow." I said the same thing like over and over, like, hey, it's a Wednesday afternoon. How's your Wednesday afternoon? Nice Wednesday afternoon going. So it helps you, and this is a good advice that he gave me, was it helps you find the crutches. And this is, I think, good advice that spreads to lots of things. You have to be objective and know what it is you're actually doing, whether you're recording yourself on the air, recording a video and watching it back and going, wow, I said the same thing, or I'm always doing this, or whatever. Watch yourself, listen to yourself. That I thought was some of the best professional advice I've gotten. If you don't know what you're doing, you can't stop yourself from doing it because you're not aware you're doing it. Even if someone tells you, until you see it yourself, that's when you can get rid of those little habits and crutches. Advice from the same guy about being on the air, and this kind of more specific to a voice, and I think it also might work, though, if you're doing video and such, is some kind of performance. He said, obviously, it depends on the situation, but let your voice go as low as it can naturally. Don't force it. Just don't force it below where it would naturally go. Now, this keeps you from getting too excited, kind of helps to keep your pace a little slower, keeps you from getting too rushing, and letting your voice get high and squeaky. Of course, there are times you want to show excitement naturally, but I've always thought that was actually pretty good advice. Another piece of advice I got along the way was don't necessarily take the easy path. And I found out, I heard this probably in my late 20s, early 30s, and I realized, I'm doing that. I'm finding the easy way out. And I think a lot of us have that inclination to do that, find the easy way out. But what that really does is leads to less challenging paths, which leads to not being as adept at handling those tough challenges when they come up. If you choose a harder, more uncertain path, you often find yourself in over your head, but you also learn more and become better at handling those tough things, okay? You've also probably heard the advice, I heard it a lot when I was learning a musical instrument, practice makes perfect. I was a young musician. I spent a year learning piano at 6, and after a year, my mom gave me the option to continue or not, and I said, nah. So I didn't learn piano much beyond the basics at that point. In retrospect, I should have kept going because that would have been a fun skill to have. But nonetheless, you heard a lot as a young musician. When I got into drums later and guitar, practice makes perfect. I never liked that. I heard something different years later. I wish I could take credit for it, but practice makes improvement, I think, is a much better way to look at that, because perfection doesn't exist. It never does. It never has, never will. There is nothing perfect, but improvement certainly exists. I think there's a story about Pablo Casals, the famous old cello player, that he was practicing in his 80s, and someone said, why do you practice? He says, because I think I'm getting better. Hang out with the people you want to be like, the people you want to emulate. This goes back to a collection, I think, of cassette tapes someone gave me in my 20s, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, those types of people. And they said you're bound to be influenced by the top 5 people that you hang out with all the time or hang out with the most. And I looked at the top 5 people I was hanging out with, and, we were a bunch of partiers and stoners at that time. So I thought, do I really want to be this the rest of my life? I didn't dump all my friends, but slowly I just kind of consciously made changes. And a lot of those guys are still old friends. Some of them are gone, but, Another piece of advice, always, and this is very simple. I think this is a great one. My mom, I think, taught me this. Always open the door for people, regardless of age or sex. It's a nice thing to do. Okay, so be nice. Another one told me it was get into the outdoors, travel. No one ever said in their deathbed, boy, I'm so glad I spent so much time in the office. I get outside, hike, travel, whatever it is. The outdoors, that's what we're here for. Here's another one. Don't regret a bad choice you made. Just work to make better choices next time, so you can't really regret those types of things. Everyone is caught up in their own world. You have no idea what other people are going through or what they've gone through in the last day or week or month or hour. Don't judge people. You can't live in their shoes, but boy, if you spent a minute in their shoes, you might have an entirely different perspective on what just happened with them. It's so easy to get caught up in our own stories and not even realize that other people have hard times as well. So don't judge people. Never stop learning. I think that's a great piece of advice. Your whole life, never stop learning. I've been learning so much the last year and a half about how to write a novel. It's a little overwhelming. It's fun, though. It's great. My mom used to always say, walk tall and stand up straight. I think that's good advice for anybody. There was a little thing also when I was a kid stuck on our kitchen bulletin board that has sort of stuck with me. I never knew what it was until in the last 10 or 15 years. I realized, and when I read it again, I looked it up. It's the Serenity Prayer, written by a theologian named Reinhold Niebuhr. And the short version of it is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I think that's good advice. Another piece of advice I like is make a good first impression, which kind of leads to the next one. Always have a smile ready. Smile at people. A smile is something that's understood in any culture or language. I like this one. I heard this 30 or 40 years ago. Compliment people. See if you can find something nice to say about someone at least once a day. Whether it's, ooh, I like those nails you have on. Those are great nails. Anything, just a compliment. Make them feel good. It makes you feel good. Another one, it's not really advice, but it's kind of an observation. Life comes at you fast. So what you didn't expect to happen 10 minutes ago may all of a sudden be upon you. Never miss out on a chance to tell the people close to you what you think of them. Tell them you love them. Moderation is for monks. All things in moderation, even moderation, I guess. When I was in my early 20s, maybe even not even 20, I met a guy at my first job. He didn't work there. He was just a guy that I met in the neighborhood. We got to be friends, named David. And he was a couple years older than me, but he'd just gone through a bout with cancer. And we talked about it one day, and he said something I'll never forget. He says, I expect to die tomorrow, but I plan to live to be 100. I thought that's a great perspective, and it's not bad advice. I like this. This is not really an piece of advice, but it's a good observation. A plan is what you start with before everything goes to hell. Don't take everything personally. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. Really, it doesn't. Whatever they think of you doesn't matter. You are who you are. Make the best decision you can at the time with the information you have. So don't second guess yourself or regret decisions once you make them. You made the decision based on the information you had at the time. You move forward. Live with it. Live with your decisions. Perfection doesn't exist. I think I alluded to this earlier. That doesn't mean things, though, can't be really great sometimes. I like this one. Savor experiences. Whether it's by yourself or with friends, out in some place in the desert, in the mountains. You can't control other people. You can only control how you respond to them. I like that one too. I think we alluded to this earlier. Listen to what other people say, but then think it over and make up your own mind. And again, live with your decision. I'll leave this one for last. It's pretty easy, simple. It's just good advice. Don't be a litter bug. All right, that wraps up this week's show. There's always advice, tons of advice. That's just what I had on my list for this week. Maybe I'll have more later. This week's one good thing to finish up the show, a book I just finished, a cool thriller by Daniel Pine called Water Memory, about a woman who's a black ops operator who's slowly losing her memory. She decides to take a cruise on one of those container ships, because I guess you can do that. That's a thing. It's not really a cruise in the sense of a regular cruise, but then things happen. Weird things happen. Daniel Pine is a scriptwriter, director, and more. He's worked on and or written movies such as Pacific Heights, Doc Hollywood, White Sands, Where's Marlowe, Any Given Sunday, Fracture, and many more. And he's writing novels now. I guess he's got a second one of this particular character coming up as well. So worth a look. It's called Water Memory by Daniel Pine. I'll have a link in the show notes. Have yourself a great week. This is Trade Show Guy, Monday Morning Coffee.